I'm Doria Fleischer, your Community Engagement Coordinator. Here at Charles County Government, we always believe in the importance of sharing our citizens' histories and stories as much as possible. This year for African American History Month, we had the incredible experience of partnering with Charles County Public Schools in order to create facilitated conversations between 3 current high school students and 3 Pomonkey High School Alumni Association members. Sitting down with these students and alumni members was an incredible experience to hear how their generations both experienced African American history and Black culture in Charles County and in the United States. We hope you'll enjoy hearing their stories through their generational voices. I am at Thomas Stone High School in Charles County, Maryland, and I am really excited to be sitting next to 2 amazing people who I've had the pleasure to begin chatting with this morning. So I'm with Adriana Young, who's a student at Thomas Stone, and Mr. Aaron Kane, Jr., who is a Pomonkey High School alumni. This collaboration between Charles County Public Schools and Charles County government, and more importantly, between our current students and our alumni in the county, is an incredibly important one. And we were so excited to have this segment on generational voices where some of our youngest, and said delicately, Mr. Kane, our older residents can talk about their experience as students in Charles County over many generations. So I want to start by just asking you each to talk a little bit about who you are and your identity and how you see yourself as a part of Charles County. So Adriana, do you mind going first?
Well, my name is Adriana Young. I'm currently a senior at Thomas Stone High School, class of 2023. I am a first-generation college student, a prospective college student. I come from a single-parent household. I've been raised by all women, so education has always been important in my life. I plan to attend Virginia State University, and growing up in Charles County, I've always had education be a part of our lives because it's so small, and everybody knows everybody. It's very family-oriented.
We were laughing earlier, you said that it actually turns out that your grandmother is also a Pomonkey High School alum. Yeah, it's great history. And you said being raised by a single family household, that it was always the expectation that you would be a strong, Black, educated woman. Yeah?
Very important.
That's wonderful. Tell me what the women around you did to support that.
Well, my mom has always prioritized education. You go to school, you wake up, you go home, the first thing you do is do your homework. There was no ifs, ands, or buts about it. My mom has always ensured that A's were a standard, and if not, you work towards it. And failure was never an option. It still isn't an option. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And Mr. Kane, this is so interesting because when we were talking before, to hear Adriana say A's were always the expectation. And you had some interesting comments about that. So can you tell us who you are and why that statement rings true in your mind?
My name is Aaron Kane, and I'm retired now, private contractor, but I spent 30 years at the University of Maryland, College Park. And I got to interact with the students, and that's my base. I love to work with students. And so proud of your accomplishments, of what you've told me so far. And basically, that's me. But back in high school, at Pomonkey High School, I had a teacher who I thought made the most ridiculous statement I'd ever heard. She said that everybody in this class can make an A. I said, that is so ridiculous. And she said, and I'm going to tell you how to do it. So I sat back and waited for this long explanation of how everybody in that class, 30, 40 students, could make an A. And she said, all you have to do is a little bit more than what's required. And I thought that that was so amazing, and that's what I would impart to each class, freshman class I had coming in at the University of Maryland. And that helped me shape who I was and let me know that she was right. When you really thought about it, everybody in there could make an A.
We were doing the math, and I think there's 56 years difference between when you graduated from Pomonkey and when you're going to graduate from Thomas Stone. And I think it's intriguing that that's such a really long span of time, but also that the theme hasn't changed, that education is so important, that representation and having somebody say to you, you can do this, let me show you how, I'm going to help you along the way, is what helps our scholars continue and grow. But I want to dive into why we came together today, which is, it is African American History Month, Black History Month, and I'm curious to hear what that means to each of you, and also curious to hear what it means to your identity. So tell me a little bit about how do you think of this month, and how does it connect to you?
Well, I think of Black History Month as power. I think Black History Month is about rejoicing and celebration. I think it's important that we take time throughout the entire year, but specifically in February, to highlight how dedicated Black contributions have been to America, how Black contributions have been to the world. I identify with Black History Month and seeing Black women who have progressed through life through hardships, education, and just paved a way for themselves. That's how I see Black History Month.
How does that connect to you?
I think that she's right on target. I'm going to tell about some of the living history, Black history, that I experienced. There is a school by Pomonkey High School that was named J.C. Parks. I knew Mr. Parks. His daughter is at our church now, and I'm sure that Mrs. Moten knows her as well. There's another school called Murray B. Neal School. I knew Mrs. Neal. And one student asked me one day, he raised his hand and said, "Do you know Matthew Henson?" I said, "No, I don't go back that far." But this is important to know how they strive to get us where we are today. The sacrifices they made, the example. You talked about mentors, mentoring students and showing them the right way to do things and that they could accomplish, And things have changed whereby to get the jobs that we have today, my mother had 3 degrees, and you had to be better than good to get those jobs, even here in Charles County. My father had 3 degrees, and they set the example to me. I've been to Virginia Union University, University of Richmond, and University of Maryland College Park. And that inspiration in telling me and showing me that you can be anything that you want to be.
As long as you work hard for it.
That's right. And I thought that was so important that we tell our students how to get where they want to go.
Yeah, setting that path from the to use that generation word, that the older generation owes it to set the path.
That's right.
For the younger
We're
generation.
standing on their shoulders and the work that they have done. Mm-hmm. And I was so proud to have known Mr. Parks and Mrs. Neal.
But not Matthew Henson.
Not Matthew.
But it's interesting that the layers, so Matthew Henson's generation, the generation of Mary B. Neal and J.C. Parks, and then this is now it's on you.
And that I could share that experience with you. Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. So I want to hear a little bit more about your high school experiences and what it was like to be a student of color in Charles County. You graduated in 1967. Yes. And Pomonkey High School was an interesting place, yeah? It's such a deep story.
And it was an interesting year for me because that was the first year in Charles County that the high schools were integrated. So my senior class went from, all black students to 12 of us because they gave the seniors a choice of going to the school that was closest to them. And that's what we ended up with. But everybody else in my class was white. So it was an experience to behold in your senior year, where you're trying to maintain your scholastic accomplishments and to, learn about other people.
Yeah. Tell me more, the learning about other, that must have been such a change to go from this really community school, yeah, to now there's only 12 of you and, yeah.
And not only were they just 12 of us, but most of the teachers were white as well. So there was a two-part learning experience that we had to become a part of.
And Adriana, I am much older than you. I'm slightly younger than you. When I hear that that was just 1967, that kind of still blows my mind.
It does boggle my mind because 1967 wasn't that long ago.
No.
It really wasn't. And to think that you had to go through such an immense change in your final year of high school. Like I couldn't imagine my final year of high school having to relearn what it was to come to school and relearn how to navigate different people I've never met before.
Yeah. So what do you remember about it? What was it like? What was it like to be a student from junior year where it was, everybody is kind of in this one community to senior year where the world kind of flipped upside down, yeah?
It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be.
Okay.
Because, if you let students do what they do, I have many friends still today who are white friends and my black friends who we get together and it's all one color, really. Yeah.
Gotcha. And your high school experience is not like that. Tell us about it. What is it? What role does race play in being a high school student in 2023?
Well, for me personally, growing up in Charles County and going to Thomas Stone, race wasn't really something I thought about because I go to school with so many different people. So it wasn't just black students. We have white students, we have Latinx students, we have students of so many different cultures and backgrounds. So I've never thought about race until we have conversations about it. And we get to see that so long ago, which really wasn't, it could have been very different. And we take for granted how open and honest we have conversations in class that a lot of times other students didn't get to have 60 years ago, 50 years ago. Yeah.
Can you picture what high school looks like? When you picture high school now compared to your high school, is it totally different?
In some aspects, because I was just thinking about something, my locker mate, each of us shared 2 lockers. He was a white gentleman. And I didn't know how to take that originally, but he was great. Yeah. His name was, I still remember, his name was Rick.
It's funny how that's such a small thing, sharing a locker, but if your whole community has been different and then changes, that's such a big deal.
Overnight,
yeah. Gotcha, thank you. So I'm curious, the theme for this year's Black History Month nationally is fighting oppression, celebrating change, resistance. What kind of oppression do you feel like is still around? When I say fighting oppression, resistance, what rings true to you as a student of color in 2023?
As a student of color in 2023, as a black student in 2023, oppression for me, I feel never changed in some ways, but just got a new name, especially when we talk about college and being a senior. There was a lot of times where it was important that you go to a HBCU so you can experience what it is to grow up in a black community and understand that outside of your bubble of high school, things are going to be different. In the real world isn't as forgiving as high school is. The real world isn't as accepting as high school is. And sometimes people who accept you here won't accept you out in the real world. And you have to navigate how to appropriately experience everyone, even if they don't want to. Yeah.
So to you, it's a feeling of kind of brace yourself, the world's going to, yeah.
Yes.
And what are some of the things, you talked about your mom being such a strong leader in your life and being surrounded by strong women, and even hearing Mr. Kane's thoughts on mentoring. What are some of the things that you feel like have allowed you to do that?
To be confident in the world, I think comes from representation. Having black teachers, having black women teachers, having a advisor who tells you this is how it's going to be, and this is what, not sugarcoating it. that this is what the world is and you have to accept it. And whether they want to or not, you're going to be confident, you're going to be responsible, and you're going to do everything you have to do. And it doesn't matter what everybody else has to say. That education is important, and you're going to push for your education. And you can do it by yourself, you can do it as a group, you can do it as a coalition, but at the end of the day, you have a goal. And that's what it means to be a Black student in America in 2023, that you have an end goal, no matter who else is with you.
So Adriana, I know you're going to go to Virginia State for college, but do you promise to come back to Charles County with your amazing confidence and leadership when you're done? Don't leave us, okay? You come on back home and, okay. And Mr. Kane, when we talk about oppression and fighting that, talk to us about what it was like in 1967. What do you remember about the role that race played and what your generation had to fight?
Well, when the schools integrated, there was so much hesitation about how it would go. It wasn't going to work, and people weren't going to get along. And that just wasn't the case. And I find also that students need someone to stand up for them.
So having that advocate along the way that not just says, I need you to be strong, yeah.
Right. But also that guidance, and you have, a lot of the times it's not about what you know, but who you know. And especially for Black students, not knowing somebody could be the deciding factor of making it further than you could ever imagine. So going into schools and coming back to Charles County is very important. When you have students who, like myself, are first generation college students, when you don't know a process. That's why you have mentors, that's why you have college advisors who make it important that I'm going to get you to where you need to go as long as you follow these steps, as long as you adhere to the guidance I'm giving you.
I love it. So I love hearing the balance of both. It's you better be strong, you better be tough, you better be confident, you better work hard. And to do that, I'm going to need you to help me get there. I'm going to need you to show me that it's possible and give me that representation.
Absolutely.
Gotcha. So I want to circle back to the difference between generations and also talk about some of the positive. Adriana, what do you think your generation, when we talk about fighting oppression and bringing change, what is your generation going to celebrate? Looking back when you're on this side of the table all these years from now, and what are you going to be able to say that your generation accomplished and celebrated?
I think our generation has accomplished advocating for ourselves. I think for a very long time it was taboo to speak up for yourself, especially as a child, when you were taught to stay in a child's place, when you were taught that that's an adult and you listen. I think our generation is a part of a new time where when things aren't right, I'm going to tell you it isn't right. When things aren't happening and moving the way it needs to, I'm going to tell you it's not moving the way it needs to. And especially when there was a time where you weren't allowed to advocate for yourself, we've redefined that, where sometimes you over-advocate for yourself. And speaking up and speaking out is something our generation has done immensely.
Yeah. What do you think?
Wonderful. And going from being a senior, and you're sort of in a shell, and now you've got to come out, you've got to tell people about yourself, who you are, what you're about. And I think that's a big change for a lot of students to get comfortable with. But you need to have a plan. And in this day and time, you need to know what advocate you can pick out to help you along the way. And it starts in the 9th grade and also before.
What I think I hear you keep saying, Mr. Kane, is that there is such responsibility. I think about what we know about Pomonkey High School, that it's this sense of community, this strong alumni association, and that it's interesting because you said something about it earlier about that lifelong commitment to helping the next generation. And I think that your generation really has made a lifelong commitment that it continues to push education, and that I've heard the Pomonkey alumni talk about how much they loved school and how much school mattered to you. And to hear you talk about education with such pride and advocacy is really beautiful. And we need that. You heard we need that.
Absolutely. And Pomonkey High School started in 1922. We had our 100-year celebration that you attended.
Yep.
And it was so good to hear people speak of how they came up. You know, they had, when they started, they had to spend the night at people's homes during the week because of the racism, and they didn't have a school. Some people from my church donated the land for Pomonkey High School to be built, and they went to the Board of Education and said, if we give you the land, will you build the school? And that's how we started to overcome.
And that education piece again, that without education, it's so much more of a struggle, that we've got to have that foundation.
Right.
And you can see like your parents were behind you in your education request and told you how important it was to do this, and you followed through. Right. And unfortunately, we don't have enough of that, I don't think. But I'm so glad to see where you are now with that progress.
Thank you, thank you.
Well, I want to thank you both for taking the time to be here today. I know we pulled you out of your African Studies class, so thank you for giving up your African Studies class to talk to us about Black History Month in 2023. Mr. Kane, thank you for taking time out of your day to be here, and I just really means a lot to hear both of your voices and the differences, but also the overlap. And I hope that years from now, you will be sitting in this chair and you'll be chatting with the next generation. Thank you both so very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity.